Before diving into this incredible story, consider subscribing to the channel and hitting the bell. Every story here has something to say, and you won't want to miss a single one. The high school bully attacked her, without realizing her terrifying secret. When Luna Moore walked through the heavy wooden doors of Roosevelt High School that day, the autumn sun struggled to break through the gray clouds that blanketed Portland. The air was cool, almost biting, and the wind rustled the dead leaves that littered the cobblestone walkways leading to the main entrance. Luna moved slowly, almost with measured steps, through the crowd of noisy, hurried teenagers who seemed to have known each other for years. But she was an isolated island in this teeming ocean of life. Almost no one paid any attention to her. Her gait was humble, almost timid. Her shoulders were slightly hunched, her head lowered, her eyes often fixed on the ground as if to avoid curious or contemptuous glances. Her long black hair, smooth as a waterfall of ink, framed her pale, almost translucent face, without a touch of makeup, simply her austere nature. Her clothes, always sober and dark, seemed to absorb the light around her, like a veil that made her almost invisible. A black wool sweater, faded jeans, worn ankle boots, no brands, no garish colors, just a uniform of solitude. Yet, despite this apparent invisibility, a strange presence seemed to emanate from her. It wasn't a warm or reassuring aura, but rather a heavy, almost palpable silence that enveloped every step she took. Students who passed her felt inexplicably uneasy, as if an invisible chill had seeped into their chests. Conversations sometimes stopped when she passed, glances quickly averted, and even some teachers, accustomed to the routine, shuddered when she entered their classroom. For Luna exuded something indefinable, a void. An absence of emotion that echoed a profound melancholy. Her eyes, dark and deep, seemed to probe the souls of those who dared to meet her gaze, as if reading buried secrets, silent pains. But no one really knew what to make of her, and perhaps that was her true power. She made people doubt, she disturbed, she fascinated. Her academic performance was impeccable. She completed every assignment, every exam, with almost disconcerting precision and mastery. She never spoke in class, never asked questions, yet she understood everything. This paradox, academic excellence and social silence, added to her mystery. It was precisely this strangeness that attracted Tyler Jennings. Tyler was Luna's exact opposite. Tall, athletic, with a square jaw and a confident smile, he dominated the halls of high school. The only son of a prominent lawyer and a local TV anchor, he had grown up in a cocoon of privilege that had made him arrogant and self-assured. He was used to being the center of attention, surrounded by a group of loyal friends who laughed at his jokes, even the cruelest ones. Tyler loved to exert his power over others, especially those who seemed vulnerable. His loud voice echoed through the halls, his imposing posture dwarfing even the smallest. He delighted in humiliating, provoking, and dominating. When Luna appeared in his line of sight, he immediately sensed a challenge. She didn't fit into his box. She didn't offer him the usual satisfaction of a frightened victim. On the contrary, she remained motionless, calm, almost indifferent. This only fueled his curiosity and contempt. "Hey, guys, look who we have here. The girl from a horror movie. She'll cast a spell on us if we talk to her," he said in his usual mocking tone, a smirk tugging at his lips. His friends burst out laughing, their echo bouncing off the tiled walls of the hallway. But Luna didn't answer. Not a word. Just a look. A fixed stare. Icy. It pierced Tyler like an invisible knife. He felt as if his thoughts, his secrets, his deepest fears were being laid bare. It wasn't the stare of a shy teenager, it was the stare of a soul who had traversed darkness he himself couldn't imagine. That look disturbed Tyler. More than he ever thought possible. And then something was born inside him, an inexplicable obsession. He wanted to understand. Control. Or destroy. But he still didn't know that behind this silence hid a secret more terrifying than anything he had ever imagined. The days ticked by slowly in the halls of Roosevelt High, and with them, Tyler's teasing of Luna only grew louder. He never missed an opportunity to taunt her, like a predator toying with its prey before striking. "Do you sleep in a coffin, or do you just prefer your room?" he said one morning, laughing loudly, as Luna walked silently past him in the hall. Her friends burst out laughing, imitating vampire gestures, but Luna made no move. She didn't even react. The next day he had even more fun. "You got lost on the path to the cursed forest, huh? Are you looking for your way to the Shadow Kingdom?" Another day, seeing her pass by with an old black book in her hand, he said mockingly, "Did you forget your witch's broomstick, or are you planning on flying on foot today?" Still the same silence. Still that deep, almost unbearable gaze, which seemed to probe Tyler's soul with icy intensity. This indifference, this complete silence, exasperated the young man. Every attempt to provoke a reaction met with an impenetrable wall. And this wall, paradoxically, attracted him like a magnet. He didn't understand. He wasn't used to this kind of obstacle. But as Tyler struggled, a series of mysterious events began to catch up with him. First, small anomalies. His phone vibrated constantly, even when it was placed on the table, far from any source of vibration. He opened the screen several times to discover cryptic, incomprehensible messages, composed of strange signs and distorted images, as if from a nightmare. He deleted the messages, but they always returned, like a silent insistence. Then the nights became torture. Nightmares haunted him, waking him sweating and short of breath. He saw dark, endlessly long corridors where muffled whispers echoed. Blurry faces appeared and disappeared in the shadows, never revealing their identities. A deep voice, almost a whisper, seemed to call to him, uttering a single word, "Luna." When he woke up, the silence of his room seemed too heavy. His head was spinning, his heart was beating too fast. Soon after, another event struck his family. Her dog, Zeus, a sturdy and cheerful Labrador, suddenly fell ill. His hind legs became paralyzed within hours. The veterinarians were perplexed, finding no obvious medical cause. Zeus's gaze, usually lively and vibrant, became blank and lost. Tyler collapsed in despair, feeling an invisible force bearing down on him. But that was not all. One night, when everything seemed calm, his 8-year-old sister Emily came into his room, trembling. "Tyler. I saw something in my room." He frowned, worried. "What, Emily? What is this thing?" She lowered her voice, almost a whisper. "The lady with the black eyes. She was there. She didn't speak. She just looked at me. I was scared." Tyler was speechless. He wanted to believe it was just a childhood nightmare, a hallucination born of his own stress. But deep inside him, an ancient fear was beginning to stir. An irrational fear, which he had always ignored. Something much bigger, darker, was creeping into his life. And he felt, deep down, that this was only the beginning. Mrs. Haley Monroe, a history teacher at Roosevelt High School, was a woman in her 50s, passionate about her job, attentive to her students, and with a keen instinct for detecting what was wrong. From the first days of school, Luna Moore had caught her attention. Not because of her brilliant grades, but because of the mystery surrounding her. Haley quickly noticed that Luna avoided all social contact. She didn't speak to anyone, never participated in discussions, and her silence seemed heavy, almost oppressive. This strangeness fascinated the professor, who sensed there was more behind that mask of icy calm. Driven by both professional and personal curiosity, Haley set out to contact Luna's old school. After several calls, she hit a wall. The officials at the previous school had no record of this student. No school records. No name matching Luna Moore. It was as if she had never been registered. As if Luna were an apparition. Intrigued and concerned, Haley decided to dig deeper. She searched local archives, dived into old databases, and finally came across an article from 10 years earlier. A forgotten tragedy, but one that had left its mark on the Oregon region. A terrible fire had ravaged a remote orphanage. All the children present that day had perished in the flames. The building had been reduced to ashes, and the grief had marked the entire community. Except one. a 6-year-old girl was miraculously found unharmed amidst the rubble. Mute, unable to speak, with no family to claim her. She had been placed in foster care under a false identity, but the child quickly disappeared from the records, as if erased from history. What struck Haley was the description in the article. The little girl had a long black braid and deep, almost unearthly black eyes. Eyes identical to Luna's. Haley found herself whispering through trembling hands. Is it possible that it's the same person? For his part, Tyler Jennings had become increasingly nervous. Every day, fear grew within him, creeping into his thoughts, into his restless nights. This girl, Luna, had awakened something he didn't understand. He couldn't back down anymore. Driven by anxiety and a desperate need for answers, he finally decided to confront her. He wanted to break the silence, to shatter the mystery that haunted him. That Friday, the Portland sky had darkened earlier than usual. Heavy clouds covered the city, and a light drizzle fell, almost invisible, but chilling. Tyler Jennings felt his stomach clench as he watched, from afar, Luna Moore leave campus. She walked with a slow, almost ceremonial pace, following a winding path through the park behind the science building. No other students loitered there. Silence reigned, broken only by the crunch of wet leaves beneath her boots. Without knowing why, Tyler followed her. He hadn't told anyone about what he'd discovered in the night, the whispers heard through the walls of his room, the symbols appearing in the fog of his mirror, the increasingly vivid nightmares that mixed fire, pain, and Luna's eyes, always. She walked through a rusty gate half hidden by dead branches. On the other side stretched a vacant lot, on the edge of the town's old, forgotten cemetery. There, at the far end, stood an old greenhouse, its shattered windows letting strange vines escape. The few students who had heard of it nicknamed it, the Belly of Silence. Nobody went there. Ever. But Luna, she went in. Tyler waited a moment. His heart pounded in his throat. Every fiber of his being screamed at him to back away. But something stronger, pride, fear, curiosity, pushed him through the rusty door. The air inside was stifling, as if the space itself had stopped breathing. The smell of damp earth mingled with a metallic scent, almost like blood. The dirty windows filtered out the daylight, giving the place an unreal sepia hue. Luna stood there in the center, motionless. She didn't jump when she heard Tyler. She knew he would come. Do you think you scare me? I know you're playing with my head. But that's enough, Luna. Tell me what you are. His voice trembled slightly, despite his intended aggressive tone. Anger barely masked fear. She turned around. Slowly. His face was paler than ever, almost translucent. His eyes, they were no longer human. You want the truth, Tyler? Her voice was no longer a whisper. It was an echo. As if she were speaking from another world. She reached out to him. And the world stood still. Time seemed to slow down. The air suddenly became dense, almost liquid, as if the entire greenhouse were underwater. The plants around them wilted in seconds, their leaves falling silently to the soggy ground. A black mist rose from the ground. It seemed alive, pulsating. It rippled around Luna like a cloak of shadow. And in this mist, a shape grew. An immense, blurred silhouette, made of shifting darkness. It had no clear face. Only red eyes, suspended in the void. A lipless mouth, which didn't move, but spoke. The voice echoed through the walls, through the air, through Tyler's bones. He awakened the memory, Luna. He broke the silence. He must see. Tyler screamed. But no sound came out of his mouth. His knees buckled, his mind reeled. The world around him collapsed. He found himself elsewhere. In an orphanage. On fire. He heard children's screams, wood cracking, flames devouring the walls. And at the center of the chaos, a little girl, kneeling amidst the ashes, unharmed, her gaze blank, her black clothes already covered in soot. She wasn't crying. She wasn't moving. He saw monks, ancient rituals, circles carved in stone. Promises made to the darkness to protect a memory. A forgotten pact. He saw Luna, younger, but still as silent, surrounded by this thing, the entity. The guardian. He understood that it wasn't a possession. It was a symbiosis. She was the guardian. The receptacle of a sacrificed memory. A collective memory of all the children forgotten, burned, abandoned by the world. She wasn't human. Not quite. She was the memory of the dead that no one mourns. Then he saw himself, kneeling in the greenhouse, pale, frozen, his mind cracked. The voice spoke one last time. Look at what you are. And what you have awakened. Now, you know. And everything went black. When Tyler opened his eyes, the greenhouse was empty. No Luna. No mist. Nothing. Absolute silence. He stumbled out, panting, drenched in sweat. He felt as if he'd been locked up for days. Yet, according to his watch, only a few minutes had passed. But something inside him was broken. That evening, he didn't come home. He wandered the streets, talking quietly, trembling. He was found at dawn, kneeling in the high school parking lot, his hands covered in dirt, repeating over and over. She doesn't forget anything. She's always there. She's still looking at me. 3 whole days. 3 days without news of Tyler Jennings. 3 days during which his family, his friends, and even the entire school had launched a search for him. Then, one icy morning, he was found wandering on a deserted street, several kilometers from the school. His feet were bare, dirty, bruised by the cold asphalt. His clothes were torn, crumpled, and a veil of shadow seemed to have settled over his gaze. That gaze, once so sure of himself, so dominating, was now empty, extinguished. An abyss of fear and confusion. Tyler didn't say a word. He didn't answer any questions. He didn't recognize anyone. His mind felt like it had been fractured, shattered into 1,000 pieces. He was quickly admitted to a specialized psychiatric institution. There, doctors found that he refused to communicate, locked in total silence, except for one obsessive behavior. He spent hours writing, scratching, and engraving enigmatic phrases on the walls of his room, repeated endlessly, like a litany. She was already dead. She's watching. She's waiting. These words, dark and heavy with meaning, deeply troubled the nursing staff. No one understood. No one knew to whom he was referring. But everyone sensed that behind this sentence lay a terrible truth. Meanwhile, Luna Moore had disappeared. The principal of Roosevelt High School, confronted with the situation, officially stated that no entry under Luna Moore's name had ever been recorded in the school's files. Her locker remained empty, with no trace of personal belongings, no documents. As if it had never existed. The mystery deepened when former students and some teachers claimed to have never seen Luna in the halls, or only intermittently, as a fleeting apparition. His presence seemed like a mirage, a shadow slipping between the walls of the school. Months passed. The high school returned to its usual routine, but a veil of mystery still hung over the place. Some students, brave or unconscious, sometimes ventured near the abandoned greenhouse. And they heard whispers. Low voices, like a whisper carried on the wind, barely audible, but enough to chill the blood. Words in a forgotten language, phrases that seemed to come from another world. The broken windows sometimes rattled for no reason, and some reported seeing shadows moving behind the dirty glass. A rumor circulated, that of an invisible presence that watched, silent, eternal. Hundreds of miles away from Portland, in another state, at another high school, a new girl entered the next school year. Like Luna, she wore black, sober, and mysterious clothes. Her long hair was braided into a tight braid that fell down her back. Sun Nam, raven black. She walked with the same calm, almost ceremonial gait and the same heavy silence. The students watched him, whispering. She didn't speak, but her gaze was just as intense, just as deep. She had come. And she waited.